Very warm good morning, dear students. Students, we were in the previous class, we were just revising in the Advent of the Mughals. There was a chapter, no? Advent of the Mughals, we were just revising. And I think we had said all this fill in the blanks answers. Okay. And I think right, true, or false, we are just dealing with. So, this is the revision. You can just go through this. Okay, you can just check the answers are correct or not. You can just see that now. Right, true, or false. You can just see. Babur was the founder of the Mughal Empire in India. That is true. Babur was a founder of the Mughal Empire in India. And the next one is Babur defeated the Rana of Mewar in the first battle of Panipat. That is also that is false, no? It is false. Babur defeated Rana of Mewar in the first battle of Panipat. That is false statement. And the next one, Humayun was a great administrator and builder. Humayun was a great administrator and builder. Humayun was a great administrator and a builder. That is also a false statement, right? Humayun was a great administrator and builder. It's also a false statement. The next one, Sher Shah is often described as the forerunner of Akbar because of his administrative achievements. Okay, Sher Shah is actually often he is described as the forerunner of Akbar. So that is also true. Then fifth one, Humayun was defeated by Sher Shah at Chausa and in Kannauj. Humayun was defeated by Sher Shah at Chausa and in Kannauj. That is also true. Humayun was defeated by Sher Shah at Chausa and in Kannauj. That is also true. Answer the following questions. You can see that what were the reasons for the success of Babur in the first battle of Panipat? What were the reasons for the success of Babur in the first battle of Panipat? So that you can just take page number 78. Causes for the success of the Babur. Okay, so that is also mentioned, the success of what were the success reasons. Many are there. So main reason is that what was the reason for success of Babur? So Babur's success was because he had a very good army and everything was in order. There was between the soldiers and the servants there was a kind of a unity. So they were having unity, and at the same time they were having the order. Okay, so and also the equipments, the weapons which they had, that was also very powerful weapons. So compared to that of the other leaders, you can see that Babur was having very effective weapons. Though he had the number of soldiers or the people, no, that was comparatively less. But you see the weapons and the things he had, it was very strong. So okay, that you need to understand here. You can just see the points. You can, from that it will be more clear. Babur's small army consisting of how much it was? 12,000, right? 12,000 men, was well trained and well disciplined. He was having very small army, but it was well disciplined, well organized. That's the main thing. Well trained. And Ibrahim, huge army. Ibrahim's army was very huge, and it was actually indisciplined and disorganized. Ibrahim's army was very big army. Number of army men, they are very high, but you see it was not well disciplined. Ibrahim's army was not well disciplined, and which was not well organized. So that is the reason. And the second point is Babur used artillery, the weapons and so on. Babur was using this artillery. Babur used artillery which was unknown to Ibrahim's army till then. In fact, he used cannons in warfare for the first time in India. So cannons, as you are knowing, no? Cannons is a large, heavy piece of artillery, typically, okay, mounted on wheels, so that you know the cannons and so on. Okay, and the wheels we just keep, and one by one they will be just uh, what we can say, they will be just giving, shooting and so on for that. So no, one by one they will be shooting and so on. So artillery, in the sense, you see a military detachment or branches of armed forces. So weapons, you understand, that is artillery. So he had a very good artillery service. He was having very good artillery. Who? Babar had a very good artillery, and at the same time, Ibrahim hadn't anything. So that is the things you need to understand here. And Babar used artillery which was unknown to Ibrahim's army till then. Now, the traditional enveloping tactics of the Central Asian cavalry proved highly effective against a large, unwieldy army of 80,000 cavalry and 500 war elephants. So Ibrahim had a very big war elephants. See, 80,000 members and all these things. But you see, yeah, he came. No, actually, Babar came with 12,000 men only. But he was able to defeat the other people. He was able to defeat the army of Ibrahim. Why? Because we can say, first thing was Babar's army was well organized and it was well trained. Okay, and the opposite way, the other side, the army of Ibrahim was not well organized, it was not well trained. So that was a condition of Ibrahim's army. And new techniques like use of artillery and weapons, that was unknown to Ibrahim and Ibrahim's army. So actually he was knowing it and he was able to do it. So he killed the enemies. Babar was able to defeat the enemies. So that you can find here. Right. Now let us see. What were the problems faced by Humayun when he became the king? Humayun, when he became the king, he has to face a lot of problems, no? You see, nobody liked Humayun. You see, when Humayun ascended the throne, you can see enemies surrounded him. Many of the enemies surrounded him. The Afghans and the Rajputs were still hostile. Bahadur Shah, the ruler of Gujarat, wanted to extend his empire. Sher Shah, the Afghan ruler of Bihar, aspired to overthrow the Mughal rule and ascend the throne of Delhi. And they just, Bihar aspired to overthrow the Mughal rule and they ascended the throne of Delhi. The first to revolt was Kamran, Humayun's brother. First, Humayun's own brother. He was just fighting with Humayun. What was his name? Kamran. And revolts also broke out in Bundelkhand, Jaunpur, and Bihar. All these places, okay, we can see that it's kind of revolts were just breaking out. All were, no, revolts were there in Bundelkhand, Jaunpur, and in Bihar. And Humayun was able to suppress these revolts partially. See, Humayun was able to suppress these revolts partially only, not fully. But before he could achieve a complete success, you see, he had to return to Delhi to check the revolt of Bahadur Shah. Okay, so he could not achieve complete success. Before that he had to go. So you see that he had to face enemies were surrounding him when he became the king. Nobody liked. Okay, there was nobody to help him actually, but he had to face a lot of tribulations and problems. Okay, but he was able to fight back. Hmm? In many of the time, he was able to fight. Sher Shah, the Afghan ruler of Bihar, aspired to overthrow the Mughal rule and ascend the throne of Delhi. See, so many problems are happening in between. Okay, let us see next question. That is, who was Sher Shah? Who was Sher Shah Suri? Who was Sher Shah Suri? Any idea? Do you have any idea that who was Sher Shah Suri? And why was he given the title Sher? How he got the title Sher? Sher Shah Suri, no? So how he got the name Sher Shah Suri? That is the question. He is known as Sher Shah Suri, Sher Khan or Sher Shah Suri. So he got the name Sher Shah Suri. How? That is also very clear. Farid Khan was a son of Jagirdar of Sasaram and Bihar named Hasan Khan, and he managed his father's Jagir efficiently. He was managing the his father's Jagir. Jagir, you know that rent, freelance which were given to Jagirdar in return for their services. See, Farid Khan was a son of Jagirdar of Sasaram and Bihar named Hasan Khan. He managed his father's Jagir efficiently, and but there was a quarrels with his stepmother that forced him to seek employment in employment under the ruler of Bihar. So, and once he happened to kill a tiger single-handedly, that time always he is known as Sher Shah or Sher Khan. See, once he happened to kill a tiger single-handedly, that time always he is known as, this came to be called as Sher Khan. So he is known as Sher Khan in that way. Okay, because he happened to kill a tiger single-handedly. So that time always he is known as Sher Khan. That is why he got the name Sher Khan. That all these things you are knowing. Okay. Briefly describe the main features of Sher Shah's administration. Okay, Sher Shah's administration. If you say about speak about the Sher Shah's administration, see, he divided the empire into 47 sarkars. See, division of the empire. There is the table also is given to you there. People are responsible for its administration. Empire. Division of the empire. There is the first one is empire. Then after that comes sarkars. Then comes the paraganas. Then comes the villages. So just like we had now, no, just like first of all there is an empire. That means the country, the state or the central government. Sorry, this is central government. Then sarkars. Then there comes, we can say, that is the state government. Then the next part is paraganas, that is the district level maybe. Then villages, lastly the village level, the panchayat. So these are some of the things you need to understand. These ideas actually, it's a contribution, great. Sher Shah's a great contribution only that you need to understand. Okay. See, let us see that revenue system and so on we have seen. What was he done? What was his administration? So, first of all, the whole empire was divided into 47 sarkars, states, and each sarkar was further divided into paraganas. And then sarkars, you see the sarkars were The Sarkars were put in charge under three main officers. That is, Shikudwari and Shikudaran was in charge of finance, law, order, and the army. The Munisif fan collected the revenue taxes because they were collecting the revenue taxes, while the Quasi was the chief judge. The Quasi was the chief judge. Okay, Munisifan collected the revenue taxes. The Quasi was the chief judge. Okay, so that is okay. Briefly, what do you know about Sher Shah's religious? Religious policy means he was very much tolerant. No, Sher Shah was tolerant towards the other religious people also. Hindus also he was very tolerant, especially. No, you can see it is from Sher Shah followed a policy of religious tolerance towards the Hindus and placed them in higher administrative posts. So even the Hindu were also posted in high positions. So he was not a religious fanatist, but he was very tolerant towards the other religions, especially to the Hindus and so on. So we can see some of his officers, they were Hindus. You can see that, no? For instance, Raja Todamal, his revenue minister was a Hindu. Okay, Raja Todamal was his revenue minister and he was a Hindu. And also you can see he also had a Hindu general, Brahmajit Kaur. So that was his Hindu general. What is the name? Brahmajit Gaur. So that is also. These all things show that he was following a policy of religious tolerance. Okay, yes, religious tolerant. Okay, so now what is the left? Photo study questions, and that is you are knowing, no? Tomb of Sher Shah, that is in Sasaram. So that is a picture is given. Identify the monument and its location. Tomb of Sher Shah, that is placed at Sasaram. Constructed Sher Shah Suri itself. When he was alive itself, he constructed it. So what are the special features of this? If you are asked, what are the special features of this tomb of Sasaram? So it is situated in the, you can see the side of a lake. It is situated just near to the at the side of a lake only. That is a speciality we can speak about this particular tomb of Sher Shah. I think this part is very clear. No, you just go through these answers once again. This chapter is not that much difficult. Just you need to know about this story. Okay, about this full chapter. So now what is left for us is the civics chapters only. So that is citizenship and fundamental rights and duties. There is a chapter which is left here, and so okay, this part also is I think clear for you. Citizenship, fundamental rights and duties. Those answers are also I have given to you already. Citizenship, fundamental rights and duties. So you just note down these answers to your copies, and you can just see those answers. See, first one, fill in the blanks. If you take citizenship, fundamental rights and duties, if you take that, you can just take the Constitution of India mentions 7 fundamental rights. Okay, 7. So write there 7. And right against exploitation mentions that no child below the age of 14 should be employed in any factory or a mine. Right against exploitation mentions, okay, that only. Now it is our duty to abide by the constitution. Abide by the constitution. To abide by the constitution. Okay, so we'll be seeing the rest answers the revision.